Hello everybody, Jules Gill here with the absolute Dan to my Sir Gotta Go Fast. It is the one and only Scott Tailford, and we have just returned from EGX 2022 in London, baby. And we have played an almighty fighting game. It is, of course, the one and only Street Fighter C's. So we have had a very good time indeed with this game. I dragged every single member of the WhatCulture team to come play with me. Every single person that came by the stands, everyone that just saw me, I was like, "You play Street Fighter 6? Yeah, let's go play Street Fighter 6. Oh, let's get a few more rounds in. Let's go."
It was rare that I wasn't playing Sonic Frontiers, but I managed to be able to.
Very true. I had to drag him kicking and screaming away from there. But in short, my friend, I love this game, and I was really worried about it because whenever a franchise that's as long in the tooth as Street Fighter comes out and says we're making massive changes to the gameplay, we're adding in this whole like single player story element that's going to have like choices and player customization, there's always a bit of me that's just like, remember the fighting game that got you in the first place, please don't break it too much. But I was so happy to see that the implementations of the new drive system, of the new way that you have specials and EX moves, how they work within combos and cancelling, they have all changed, in my opinion, for the better. And I played, I would say, about 30 or 40 rounds because I just dragged as many people as possible. Admittedly, I have only play tested the 6 characters that they have out for the demo at the moment. But I have to say that this has been my most fun time with Street Fighter since maybe Street Fighter Alpha 3. Like,
it's been a long time. Because first of all, I need to flag the fact that I apologize for my audio recording. I'm so echoey in this room. The comparison between this and your crisp microphone is going to be ridiculous. But the building, the internet's off in every other room, so I've got to try and use this one. Anyway,
that's what it is, man.
That's the thing. So, but yeah, with Street Fighter though, I feel like they're trying to get their crown back. I feel like with Street Fighter 5, it was such an abysmal launch that it took forever before they got basic features.
It really did, like no story mode, but then they were like, oh yeah, we're promising a story mode. It's like, why bother promising it then if you haven't got it?
I'm sure there was like barely, I'm sure it launched, there wasn't even an offline versus mode.
Dude, there wasn't even a training mode when it launched.
So it's one of those things where I feel like, you know, it's been long enough. Like 2015 was Street Fighter 5, but everyone loved the look of that game. Like I kept playing that game because I loved how much, I love that inky kind of style they've gone for.
Yeah.
And obviously Street Fighter 6 is more kind of like graffiti artist infused, which I really, really like. There's a lot of like fluidity to like the overall animation. Like it just moves so well. Like we just kept playing it because it was just so inviting to just keep going. And the drive stuff, I kind of want to talk about that because I feel like recently, you know, Tekken 7 and Mortal Kombat kind of overhauled a lot of their core mechanics. Like in Tekken 7, you had a lot more, I think they were called almost the same thing. It was like drive impact or whatever, where you can tank a move and you can sort of absorb it and then hit something back. And Mortal Kombat, they started like rationing out the way their specials work, where you're burning specific parts of a meter offensively or defensively. I really like that, and I feel like that plays into the sort of tactical element of, you know, being a fighting game fan. And so now you've got Street Fighter doing it, where you have like this one meter that you can burn, but if you do it too much, you go into burnout, and then your guy is just like, I just wrecked or whatever.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting concept because we're all used to managing like super gauges when you're like doing special attack focused fighting games. But here, like having a separate bar that's just underneath your health bar that depletes if you use either parry mechanics or drive impacts, which are basically moves that allow you to tank up to 3 hits, so it gives you sort of like auto armor, so you carry the move animation forward.
You do still take damage, but you can advance.
Yes. Which isn't exactly a new concept for the Street Fighter franchise. They in Street Fighter 4 they introduced, it might have been actually in a previous game, but I remember it mostly from Street Fighter 4, where they'd give you an animation that allowed you to take 1 hit and still carry forward. But this allows up to 3 hits, which, as you can imagine, is incredible when you're going up against very combo-heavy opponents. And there are a lot of quick jabs and kicks in this game. It feels like a much more fluid. It feels like the jump from me personally, from when Street Fighter 2 went to Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It feels like we're really starting to ramp up the speed here. I adore the ability to do the parry mechanic, and if you hold down the 2 buttons, you're into this like glowing stance. You will not only be able to parry the next hit that comes in, but you can also forward dash or backwards dash out of it, cancel it to go forward, and that sets up new combo chains. So there's actually some fighters out there that benefit from going into parry first, then into a more powerful combo, which is going to take a lot to like master, especially because it's like unlearning a lot of techniques that even long-time veterans have. Like you're a Ken and Ryu mainstay really, but even Ken feels so different now that they've added in a ton more focus on kick. kicks, and he's got like a more sort of like Street Fighter, I know that's ironic for the name, like style moveset where it's much more like almost low kicks, like sort of stomping effect.
Yeah, I was like, it's like impressive how much they've like sort of differentiated Ken from Ryu a lot more. Like it's sort of, which is something that like, I always just hop between the two. I'm not like, I'm a Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Dead or Alive guy. I've never been a Street Fighter guy, even though I've played almost all of them over the years. But it's one of those things where, I just sort of default to Ryu and Ken. But like you said, I feel like they've differentiated him quite considerably. But the thing that blew me away was just how immediate it was. Like, you could give anyone this. It feels like a prestige fighting game. It's sort of one of those things where even Sai was saying, they don't play that much fighting games, but we just sat down and they were like, this was just so immediate and so playable. And after you left the show, we just kept playing for like another hour. And it's just so easy to dive into. Like I said, I feel like they're gunning for their crown, and it's tough competition. Like MK11 is the best thing that NetherRealm have made. Tekken 7 has had an insane run for the last 5 years.
Man, that new Tekken 8 footage that just came out as well, like stiff competition doesn't even begin to describe it. Like, especially when that was revealed to be like in-game footage or whatnot. It's just like, oh me, oh my.
But I feel like they've doubled down on that sort of inky, like, because I remember when Street Fighter 4 started getting shown off, and everyone was like, I don't know if I'm okay with this. I remember loving that sort of looks like almost like a piece of Japanese art come to life kind of thing. Where like every move is like trailed by like an ink splat or something. And I feel like they've only doubled down on that over the years. And like Street Fighter 6 has such a differentiable, identifiable style that I just want to be in that world. Like, every transition animation, everything.
Yeah. I absolutely love the aesthetics of this. The character design is like bombastic, over the top. Like the proportions of the fighters are so like ginormous muscles and crazy hairstyles. It's something that we all know and love, but it just seems accentuated here to like we're becoming more stylish as as more and more characters roll out. I love the backgrounds. They're so full of animation and personality. Like we fought on, there was, I believe it was 4 different stages that we had. You had like a temple, you had like a fire shrine, you had a military base, and there was another one which was like a street that you were just like brawling in, and everything just felt like murky but bright. Everything was so like the saturation just been bumped up, so it was hitting you with color. And it was like, do you know what, fighting in that cityscape one, when we're especially doing like the inky drive impact moves, it felt like Splatoon but a fighting game. Like it was crazy.
It's like I feel like various devs knew that Splatoon was going to land, and obviously Splatoon has just set records as the fastest selling game of all time in Japan or whatever. But it's like the new Fortnite expansion, Chrome, is literally Splatoon, like in terms of you can disappear into the Chrome and pop back out of it. And then Street Fighter is getting all super inky as well. In terms of character animation though, obviously in Street Fighter 5 they really amped up the facial animation, that when you're getting hit with something or you're getting like suplexed or whatever it is, the eyes are practically popping out their head. You can now animate on the loading screen when you're waiting. I love that. Right, okay.
That is my favorite, like most pointless feature that they've put into like any game, like using the D-pad just to make Jury go like there sort of thing. It's just so funny. Like you will not have, no matter if you're fighting somebody who you have a genuine personal beef with, you'll never be able to like take that seriously if they're just going like, ooh, 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 like
it was like laughing faces and like wide eyes and whatever.
So funny.
It's worth shouting out as well that if you hit rematch, it's immediate. Like there's no,
that's
it doesn't
important.
Have to reload the fight. You can just be like, okay, one more, and you're back in like immediately. And I feel like that's one of the things that we've waited for new games to take full advantage of the new hardware. Like you have SSD technology available to you, just have something that instantly loads. So it's like, it's still, those kind of things are like quality of life improvements, but I feel like taken alongside the absolute visual aesthetic punch that this is, like it was so lovable.
New characters as well. The 3 that we got to try out, they all have a completely different, distinct personality, amazing flair. I feel like there's some real powerhouses in the bunch between them, because it's like I love Luke's fusion of just kind of like, it's for people who like Ken and Ryu, like that sort of like standard, like I've got my sort of like Hadouken style punch things where I like punch so hard that the air displaces around it. But they've got like more of like personality in their jump kicks and their like reversals and stuff. It's amazing. And you know what, I really hope that this does well on the professional circuit, because it seems that what they're trying to do with Street Fighter 6 is break the mold that they set themselves in. The whole like idea of using this parry mechanic to or the impact gauge to the drive gauge to cancel your moves to allow you access to EX and special moves is really interesting, because that's it changes up fundamentally what combos were done with characters before versus how they're going to be done now. Like before, for example, you'd have, this is the setup to do this. Now, in order to achieve the same thing, you're going to need to focus into using the drive system to cancel at the right time, to move forward, to then start a new combo. And it's like the drive impact, the super colorful tanky hit one. If you do that near somebody in the corner, it will hit them into the corner and they will actually stay fixed there for a second or two.
Yeah, you can get
and
pinned.
That is so important for turning that into a launcher for another combo.
But that person will also build up their drive gauge and can then use a drive impact to push you back out of it. Because we realized that if we both did them together, it comes right down to the wire as to who started theirs.
Cool.
Even like a millisecond after, because then you'll tank the other person's hit and then hit them back out of it again.
Yeah.
I like all that stuff in terms of like trying to find the right balance in terms of the amount of different counter moves that you can have. One thing that I thought stood out, and I could be wrong, maybe I'm misremembering 5 because it was like 7 years ago, but did you feel like fights lasted longer? The health bars were like,
I think that maybe for the demo thing that they probably put the health back up the top, because it did feel like fights were going on considerably longer than they usually do. But I actually enjoy that. I enjoy the back and forth chip, because there's actual chip damage in this game now as well, which is interesting, because obviously you can't just hold block and just hope for the best. And if you even withstand a flurry of attacks from a special move, even if you've blocked it all, that chip damage is going to wear you away, which is it's a nice feature.
Yeah, that was the thing that eventually Sai killed me with, was like I was coming up with one of those unblockables and he was just like boop, and I was just gone. Like, yeah, sure. But yeah, I think that like overall they needed to land strong, and I think it's it was just so immediate. That's the thing that blew me away, was just how immediate it was. And I feel like of all the different genres that have taken advantage of new technology, fighting games, especially anime fighting games, the likes of like Fighter Z are just blowing up so much. They have such a one-to-one in terms of how fluid they are. And there's a lot of anime influence in this. Like all the special moves are so over the top. Like lots of spinning, lots of like crazy like energy effects and auras all coming off you. Like it was very, very confident.
I have had a great time with this game. The only thing that for me that I'm worried about is how they handle that single player mode, because the way that they presented it with your character avatar like roaming the streets and talking to people and doing battles, like, just from the look of it, it's not going to be voice acted. It's going to have that slightly cheap affair to it. I feel like if they go wrong, it could be like Jump Force was, with you walking around seeing these iconic characters being like, hey, do you want to practice your uppercut training? And it's like, oh my god, this is so soulless. I just hope that that's not the case.
I feel like that's kind of becoming like an accepted way to do like a story mode, where you just get a big open city and you just walk around talking to everybody, but it's all text based.
But Mortal Kombat has proven that the way to do a storyline is to make it cinematic, to make it so that the choice isn't necessarily in the player's hands, but it's the devs telling a well curated story. Like, I do not want 50 or so mini battles where Chun-Li is telling me that I've got to kick chickens back into a chicken coop. Like, that to me has no impact on the greater story of what Street Fighter is. But if it's like a story of like Chun-Li maybe asking me to help her find the killer, because obviously she's like a police officer still back in the day, so like maybe it's like an unsolved crime that like, if you can make it more thematic to the person, then that'd be amazing. I'd love that.
I feel like they're building out this whole like idea, because like Splatoon, my comparison is almost Splatoon, because they have that sort of like in Splatoon you have this big open like lobby, this big town square kind of thing, which if there's a live event about to happen, then something is going to get built in that space. And they kind of have that for Street Fighter, where it's like, well, the tournament's happening, all these fighters are here, all these different people are here, and maybe being animated by real life people. And they've been showing off, Capcom have been showing off on Twitter like the various arcade machines that you can play. Like you can play the original
to be fair, that is a nice touch. I
inside
love that.
There, which I know is like a different lobby than the main game, but I feel like overall they want to have this like platform for Street Fighter, like because it is the 6th one and it is this massive global thing.
I am looking forward to seeing how they focus on extreme battles, because that was not an option that we could play at EGX, but it was on the list of things that you could do. And from the trailer that we've seen, there's like little special battles where you have like 2 beach balls floating in the arena while you're fighting, and the only way to do damage to your opponent is to charge up those beach balls and hit them into your opponent, kind of like what was that?
Like
that was
Tekken Ball.
There was like a baseball game that actually had that as their entire gimmick. You could only have one hit, and you hit. I can't remember what it was, and it had the music from the same guy who did Jet Set Radio Future. That's why I liked it. But anyway, that's completely off the point there. But still, as it stands right now, I'm so hopeful. Maybe a little bit worried about the single player, but in terms of the gameplay, it seems pretty rock solid, and I just really hope that it launches in a better state than Street Fighter 5 did.
It's super Moorish. Like there was a reason we just kept going back to playing as much as possible. But yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of Street Fighter 6's rollout so far, and which parts you're looking forward to. Do you share the worry or the potential doubt of how the single player is coming together? For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
And I have been Jules.
Jules, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
See you, everyone. Bye.